We made a short film. We felt that AI tools was going to be the best way to do it, to kind of put our money where our mouth was. So what follows, it's not a victory lap or any kind of creative showboating. It's just more field notes, effectively. It's, a record of what we tried, what we struggled with, the lessons that we learned along the way. The tools kept changing even as we were making it, or new tools were being discovered or released as we were doing it that were going to be able to help us. And what worked one day broke the next. But that's part of the point. The story here isn't the film that we ended up with, it's what we discovered in the process. This was never going to be a one-button AI film. Right from the start, I knew that it would take 4, 5, 6, however many platforms stitched together, each doing what it was best at, because no one tool alone could do this. And certainly in terms of the ideas, we went through quite a few, and AI sort of influenced the idea too, because I mean, for example, at one point we were looking at clocks as the metaphor, and on paper it was brilliant. We could have been really creative with it in the way that we wanted to go. The great clockmaker so-and-so, or a clockmaking company. It felt really kind of story-like and in the right sort of vein that I wanted to hit. But if you've ever tried to make a clock face in AI, then you'll know it's just an absolute nightmare. The hands go wild, the numbers multiply. You end up with, something like a Salvador Dali wall of nonsense. But and then we hit on, it was me, it hit on shoelaces, which I thought was going to be perfect at first. Talking about a company that was famous for outrageous shoelaces, fairy light sparklers, barbed wire or smoke or whatever it was. So the story would go that then when we used AI, the AI gave us plain brown laces, mundane, which in story terms, it was kind of the wrong way round. It should have been that the AI didn't understand the brand, and so it delivered these wild hallucinations. But boring shoelaces aren't really that much of a story. I mean, why even bring AI in as a business if what you made was boring shoelaces? So I think somebody then mentioned this word vanilla, and the whole room groaned at once, like, oh, because of course, a crazy ice cream company known for outrageous flavors, and all the AI could give them was vanilla. It was absolutely perfect. So from there, the concept of the film was born, and we had that. And because ice creams are way easier to make than clocks, you just got to pick your battles. I knew from the start that it needed a really, really visual world, a really strong world. And knowing what that is at the beginning is obviously really important. So, as I'm sure is totally noticeable, I took inspiration from Wes Anderson, but I didn't want it to be just the cliches, not just symmetry and pastel colours. It's the ethos. It's the way that Wes builds worlds that feels complete and consistent, a little bit surreal, but grounded and believable. Every frame sort of feels intentional, and every detail is sort of part of the story. And that was the feel that I wanted here. Not to copy, but just to give the film its own kind of recognizable miniature universe, a place where a dog can leap out of a monitor and nobody really questions it. Plus, I wanted a VO to tell the story, and this just fitted perfectly. At the agency, we were using chatgpt at the time, and now we're using Gemini, but some of us still use chat as well, just to kind of keep an eye on things. Because that's the thing with AI tools. You hop from one to another, and then something can happen over there, and then you hop back again when the next update suddenly floors the competition the next week. It's always moving, and you have to keep your eye on what's new to see what opportunities are out there. And though I'd kind of worked on ideas or copywriting or things like that with chat before, I'd never properly, done any brainstorming. I certainly never talked to it before in one of those sessions. And though most people probably have, it was the first time that I had. But having a bit of a fragmented brain with things like this, where I'll kind of get excited about that idea and then all of a sudden jump to that one, and then here's the start of a thought, here's how it might connect to that, and here's the ending of that other one. What I loved is that I could do all of that, but know that ChatGPT could hold on to all the threads and stitch it all together and feed it back instantly. Nothing got lost. It was just like having a collaborator who never really dropped the thread. So actually, the story came together like really, really quickly and coherently. Chat also pulled together invaluable documents that I didn't I didn't even know that I needed, like a shooting script, which just totally streamlined the process. Embarrassingly, I didn't even know how to write one, but that's the great thing about platforms like ChatGPT. All of a sudden, I had one, and I didn't know how useful it was going to be. So by the time the screenplay and the shooting script were pulled together, though I had some serious assistance in doing so, looking at it, I knew that it was my work. It wasn't like getting AI to write it for me. It was just like having that great collaboration, that great collaborator right alongside me. So suddenly I had everything that I needed to get started with the film. And normally the smart thing to do at this stage would be to storyboard, but I just decided to skip that. I thought that it was just going to take too long and it was sort of a bit unnecessary. I felt confident that I had every shot and how it needed to look at this stage. And if it didn't work, you could just adapt, add a shot here or tweak the script there. It felt like it was in a really good place. So with the voiceover, I used 11 Labs. I've used it a lot before, so I've learned how to sort of steer the sliders, which make absolutely no sense to me at all. I find it totally random and paradoxical. Yes, that value makes sense, but combining it with that value or reducing that and increasing that, it doesn't make sense to me. I might be wrong, but that's just me. But because some lines needed to be more dramatic or more intense, or some were a bit more laboured, I kind of found the right way to balance that enough times in the past that it kind of feels instinctive, or you've got enough credits to be able to sort of experiment a little bit. But the important thing is I didn't just paste in the whole script. It was kind of like almost like a line by line direction, if you like, pushing it to kind of get the nuance that I wanted. And it felt a lot less like a tool and more like sort of directing an actor in a sort of hands-on way. Just before I hit this stage of production, Google Flow or Google VO3 had added the ability to define a start frame in this fabled VO3, which seems like a small feature on paper, but for me, it was huge. I was so excited. It meant that I could finally anchor the moving shots to the exact image that I had in my head, or my hand, or my hard drive, using this model that, to me, looked head and shoulders the best thing that was out there. Everything was now going to be so much more incredible. Even in a short production like this, one new tool or feature can completely change the whole creative process. For stills, we thought or found, it's not like we were spending weeks and weeks doing this or anything like that, but I thought that Midjourney gave the most creative results that I could find. And with at the time, the release of version 7, it was obvious that the results were going to be on a whole other level entirely. Here's something that I did learn along the way, is that creating profiles in Midjourney is like making a broad mood board. It's not just one look. It's a whole catalogue of influences that are baked in. Whereas creating a mood board, it seems to be tighter, but adding more and more references, which is what I initially thought, doesn't necessarily make it sharper. If anything, it kind of dilutes it more. What we found worked best for us anyway, using just 2 images as a style reference within my standard V7 profile. That kind of seemed like a really, really tight, focused mood board that still allowed for creativity. And it's the main reason that all of the shots within the film hang together so well. The next challenge here was going to be character consistency, and not for vanity reasons. It wasn't about making the main guy look like me. I'd have liked nothing more than for that to have not have been the case, but it was just practical because I was here, and if I needed a shot of our guy staring at the screen, peering through the monitor or typing away happily, It was just easier to shoot that reference of myself, and using omni-reference, it kind of gave okay results, but not great. I was a bit disappointed. I thought that again was going to be a silver bullet, but it wasn't quite there. Consistency was really, really hard. Easily one of the biggest challenges, and an area that I know that we'd improve given the tools that are available now if when we do another film. One thing that was really, really important and kind of a big breakthrough was creating a consistent prompt structure for midjourney. So it was designed, built, written, whatever in chatgpt. So every time I asked it for a midjourney prompt for, say, shot 25, and then putting in all the details that I wanted to have in there, I'd get a full description in my style, always with the same references. Whether that's, I mean, we included things like color grading, deliberate palettes, overly theatrical, formalist composition, symmetry, planimetric framing, whimsical, nostalgic, handmade feel, shot on 35mm film, cinematic lighting, realistic textures. What else is it? Subtle imperfections, film grain, grainy film still, all of that every time. And once we had that as a baseline, I could just really focus on what the shot was and not worry about whether it would match the rest of the film. Where it slowed down, well, the image generations was the longest and the bumpiest stage, to be honest with you. The style reference that I used, those 2 style reference that I mentioned before, they were great, but it was really, really limiting. Straight on shots were fine, but profiles, specifically profiles of people or different angles, it was just a total nightmare. If I swapped the reference or made another one, I just lost the consistency. It was a struggle using creative prompting to trick the AI into giving us what we needed. Next time that I think that I'd place much more importance on setting up a variety of useful style images and doing a bit more testing there, rather than getting down the line and finding that they're not totally suitable for everything that I need to do. So yeah, it's one of the problems is like that age-old thing. If somebody says, don't think of an elephant, you can't help but think of an elephant. And it appears to be the same with AI. So if you wanted a wide shot, and then you wrote something like wide shot, you'd still get a waist-up portrait of somebody. And so you'd have to kind of think of creative workarounds. Like, for example, if you wanted a wide shot, then start talking about somebody's shoes. Describe something that only makes sense if you're zoomed out, and then suddenly the AI has to think wide. And also, I didn't like the zoom feature in midjourney before somebody says, why don't you try the zoom feature? Because it doesn't use V7 for a start, so the results are kind of not anywhere near as good. And also, it's not compatible with the omni-reference, so it won't allow you to do that with any images that you've used with omni-reference. Where midjourney struggled the most was on simple things, simple shapes, objects, trying to visualize, a simple geometric object. The slot attachment in particular nearly broke me. Midjourney just couldn't do it. At one point, I was convinced that this one shot might actually sink the whole project. It was driving me so crazy. But then trying things like ChatGPT and Google Imagine, they just became lifesavers, because they just ate it up really, really easily. And it was that learning that hopping between platforms, it wasn't optional. It was absolutely essential. There were some shots that fell short. It was a bit disappointing, but the one that I never really loved was the handshake shot at the end with the 2 guys. Our guy, the protagonist, it looked like him enough to pass, but to me it didn't feel like him at all. That was a pure prompt build as well. There was no Omni reference there, because Omni only works if there's only one person in the image, which is a bit infuriating. But it felt like that this was it was kind of this close to what I needed, but I couldn't quite lock it. But of course, all of this would have been totally different now with things like Nano Banana. Would it have solved the consistency issue? Maybe, probably. Would it have done as good a job with the art direction and the world building? Maybe not. I don't know. That's the real question.